Ancient cities hold geometric secrets in their very streets. You are about to learn how to see the hidden blueprints of the world's oldest urban centers. From the perfect grid of Mohenjo-Daro to the celestial alignments of Teotihuacan, our ancestors did not just build cities, they embedded entire cosmologies into stone and earth, using geometry as a divine language to connect the human world with the cosmos. This video will give you the key to deciphering these ciphered maps, revealing a lost science of sacred design. Why would ancient builders go to such incredible lengths to encode complex knowledge into their city plans? And what does this tell us about their understanding of the universe itself? What does it mean to live in a world designed by sacred geometry? This search for cosmic order began by looking up. The night sky, with its predictable cycles and perfect circular motions, presented the first and most profound model of harmony. The circle, endlessly looping without beginning or end, became the ultimate symbol of divinity and eternity. On Earth, the square, with its 4 equal sides and right angles, represented stability, the 4 cardinal directions, and the very ground of human existence. These were not just shapes, they were the fundamental syllables of a language used to describe creation itself. Ancient philosophers like Pythagoras in Greece and later Plato saw these geometric forms as the invisible architecture of reality, the perfect blueprints from which our imperfect world was cast. They believed that to understand the circle or the square was to grasp a fragment of the mind of the Creator. This was not abstract math. It was a spiritual science, one that found expression everywhere, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the staggering symmetry of a snowflake. When it came time to build their greatest cities, our ancestors used this same sacred language. They were not merely constructing places to live, they were building cosmological models, attempting to replicate the perfection of the heavens here on the solid, square Earth. The city itself became a mandala, a vast symbolic diagram meant to align human life with cosmic principles. But how did they translate these perfect, ethereal forms into the messy reality of stone and mortar? The methods they used to encode this celestial geometry into the very streets we walk are a fascinating story of innovation and devotion. This symbolic language was not just decorative. It was a form of coded instruction built into the very streets people walked every single day. The most powerful symbols, like the mandala, were not meant to be seen from above. They were meant to be experienced from within. A citizen moving through a city laid out like a cosmic diagram would unconsciously absorb its lessons of order, harmony, and their own place within a vast universe. The geometry itself was the teacher. This is why numbers held such profound power. The number 3 might represent the divine trinity found in countless cultures, the number 7 the known celestial bodies, and the number 12 the cycles of the moon or the signs of the zodiac. These were not arbitrary choices. They were the fundamental frequencies of a universe ancient people were striving to understand and emulate. We see this numerical coding everywhere, from the 3 main pyramids of Giza to the 12 gates described in visions of a heavenly Jerusalem. Even Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man is far more than a beautiful drawing. It is a late echo of this ancient knowledge, a perfect geometric model of a human being harmoniously inscribed within both the circle of the cosmos and the square of the earth. This reveals a stunning fact. These principles were so deeply understood that they transcended individual cultures and epochs, appearing in places that could not have possibly communicated with one another. They point to a shared human endeavor to grasp the architecture of existence itself, and to make this cosmic connection real, the architects turned their eyes once more to the heavens, using the movements of the sun and stars as their ultimate guide. To make these celestial blueprints a reality, ancient architects employed surprisingly sophisticated tools. A simple vertical pole called a gnomon could cast a shadow whose length and direction throughout the year revealed the sun's precise path, marking the solstices and equinoxes with unwavering accuracy. In ancient Egypt, an instrument known as a merkit, a narrow bar with a plumb line, was used to track the alignment of stars with incredible precision. With these devices, a team of skilled observers could chart the heavens and then translate those exact coordinates onto the ground, creating a permanent celestial map in stone. The result was a city that lived and breathed with the cosmos. On the morning of the summer solstice, the sun would rise in perfect alignment with a central avenue. A specific temple might only be fully illuminated by the setting sun on one sacred day of the year. The city itself became a giant clock and a calendar, its streets and structures marking the seasons for planting and harvest, and dictating the timing of vital religious ceremonies. This was the ultimate fusion of science and spirituality. The precise orientation of the Great Pyramid of Giza to the stars of Orion's belt, or the way Angkor Wat's lay out mirrors the Draco constellation, was a deliberate act of world building. It embedded the society within the cosmic order, reinforcing the idea that human life was a direct reflection of celestial harmony. Every sunrise that flooded a precisely aligned street was a reaffirmation of that connection, a daily reminder that their world was purposefully designed within a grand, universal plan. This profound relationship between earth and sky points to an even deeper layer of design, one governed by the mathematical ratios believed to underpin all of creation. This mathematical obsession with harmony found its ultimate expression in a single, perfect number. The golden ratio, approximately 1.618, appears with uncanny frequency in the natural world, from the spiral of a galaxy to the arrangement of a pinecone seed. Ancient builders recognized this ratio not as a random number, but as a fundamental key to divine beauty, and they deliberately harnessed its power in their metropolises. In Athens, the very dimensions of the Parthenon, from the width of its facade to the height of its columns, are meticulously calculated to conform to this golden proportion. The result is a structure that feels eternally balanced and inexplicably pleasing to the human eye, a monument that has captivated viewers for millennia. Far across the world, the Maya of Central America were applying the very same principle. In their great city of Tikal, the proportions of towering temples and the widths of grand causeways were planned using this sacred ratio. Walking through such a city would have been a profoundly different experience. Instead of chaotic, narrow alleys, a person would move through spaces designed with an intrinsic sense of balance and visual harmony. This was not just about creating pretty buildings. It was about evoking a specific feeling, a deep-seated tranquility and order that resonated with the soul. The builders believed they were weaving the very fabric of the cosmos into their urban landscapes, creating a mirror of celestial perfection on Earth. The fact that cultures separated by vast oceans and with no possible contact both arrived at and applied this same complex mathematical concept is staggering. Babylonian clay tablets and Greek mathematical texts prove they could not only understand but also accurately compute this irrational number. Their tools were simple, ropes with measured knots and wooden stakes, yet their ambition was cosmic. They used these basic instruments to lay out entire cities according to a ratio they believed was the handwriting of the Creator. This universal appreciation points to something deep within the human psyche, a shared recognition of a pattern that is fundamentally harmonious. The genius of these ancient urban planners was their ability to translate an abstract mathematical truth into the lived experience of every single citizen. And this meticulous design extended beyond stone and plaza, even shaping the most vital resource of all, water, with the same geometric precision. This integration of geometry and water management reveals a breathtaking level of sophistication. In the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, part of the Indus Valley civilization, the streets were laid out in a near-perfect grid, but this order extended far beyond the surface. Beneath those straight avenues ran an equally precise network of baked brick channels, directing water and waste with an efficiency that would not be seen again for thousands of years. Each house had its own bathing area, and water was supplied from enormous, geometrically perfect public wells. This was not merely a municipal utility. It was a carefully choreographed dance of hydraulic engineering, all governed by the same principles of order and balance that shaped the city above. The Romans, masters of empire, took this concept to an even grander scale. Their aqueducts are legendary, but their true genius lies in the subtle geometry of their construction. The gentle, consistent gradient needed to keep water flowing for miles was a feat of precise calculation. The repeating arches that supported these massive structures were not just strong, they were a manifestation of rhythmic, mathematical harmony, a pattern that echoed across the empire. For these cultures, water was never just a physical resource, it was a sacred element. In Indian cities, water channels were often designed to mirror the path of the holy Ganges River on Earth. In Egyptian temple complexes, pools and canals represented the primordial waters of creation from which all life emerged. The act of managing water, of controlling its flow with geometric precision, was a way of participating in the divine order of the universe. A public fountain, then, was more than a place to collect water. It was a spiritual statement, a point where the practical need for survival seamlessly merged with a profound cosmological symbolism. This holistic vision, where every element of the city served both a physical and a metaphysical purpose, reached its most critical expression in the structures built to protect it all. The walls and fortifications that defended these sacred centers were themselves masterclasses in hidden geometry, designed not only to withstand an attack but to project an aura of invincible power. The walls of an ancient city were far more than a simple barrier of stone. They were a carefully constructed interface between order and chaos, a physical and spiritual filter designed by sacred geometry. In places like Great Zimbabwe, massive circular walls enclosed the royal court, their perfect curves believed to channel protective energies and create a harmonious, fortified sanctuary. This was not superstition. It was a form of spiritual engineering, where the very shape of the wall was thought to generate a field of safety for those within. Similarly, the Inca builders of Sacsayhuaman constructed zigzagging walls of colossal, perfectly fitted stones. These dramatic angles were not just for show. They were a defensive masterstroke, allowing defenders to trap attackers in deadly crossfires, but they were also believed to actively deflect malevolent spiritual forces, confusing and repelling any form of negative energy that approached the sacred city of Cusco below. These powerful shapes often drew from a deep well of sacred symbolism. The labyrinth, a complex and winding path found in cultures from ancient Crete to medieval Europe, was more than a puzzle. Built into the layout of a city or the approach to its citadel, it was designed to spiritually disorient and trap evil, preventing it from reaching the heart of the community. The mandala, a geometric representation of the universe, provided a template for a perfectly ordered and protected cosmic microcosm. To walk within a city designed as a mandala was to exist within a diagram of divine protection. What is truly remarkable is how these spiritual designs consistently proved to be engineering marvels. The interlocking angles of Inca walls granted them incredible seismic stability, allowing them to withstand earthquakes that would topple simpler constructions. The concentric circles of some African settlements created efficient, defensible zones. This is the genius of ancient design, where the quest for spiritual harmony seamlessly produced some of the most resilient and practical structures ever built. They did not see a division between the mystical and the mechanical. To them, it was all part of a single, sacred science of creation. And at the very center of these geometrically fortified sanctuaries, acting as the anchor for the entire cosmic design, stood the temple. At the very heart of these sacred geometries stood the temple, the undeniable anchor of the entire cosmic blueprint. This was not merely a building for worship, but the fixed point from which every street, wall, and plaza radiated. In the great Mesopotamian city of Ur, the massive ziggurat rose from a geometrically perfect platform, its corners aligned with the cardinal directions. Its stairways did not just lead to a shrine, they created a symbolic pathway for the gods to descend to earth and for priests to ascend closer to the heavens. The structure itself was a calculated instrument for connection. This principle echoed across the ancient world. At the Oracle of Delphi in Greece, the temple was not placed by chance. Its location was determined through a complex understanding of harmonic proportions, believed to sit at the very navel of the world. The result was a place where the boundary between the divine and the mortal felt thin, a feeling amplified by the temple's unique acoustic properties, where a whisper at the altar could be heard throughout the chamber. The very shape of these temples reinforced their purpose. A circular temple might represent the eternal, unending cycle of the seasons or the heavens, while a square foundation firmly grounded it in the material world. Every column, every doorway, every step was a deliberate part of a larger mathematical equation aimed at creating resonance. To approach such a structure was to walk a predetermined sacred path, moving from the chaotic outer world into a zone of perfect, divine order. The entire city was in effect an enormous mandala, and the temple was its immovable center. This central role meant that daily life was constantly oriented around this spiritual and geometric core. And this influence extended directly into the neighborhoods where people made their homes, proving that this sacred design was meant for every citizen, not just the priests. This geometric precision was not reserved for grand monuments alone. It extended directly into the very homes where ordinary citizens lived their daily lives. The residential quarters of ancient cities were meticulously planned, not just for efficiency, but to actively cultivate social harmony and well-being. In the Harappan metropolis of Mohenjo-Daro, the grid was a masterpiece of social engineering. Every house, built with standardized kiln-fired bricks, had access to the same clean water from public wells and connected to the same sophisticated underground drainage system. The uniform width of the streets and the precise angles of the alleyways were not arbitrary. They were calculated to maximize airflow, providing natural ventilation and cooling in the intense heat, while also ensuring sunlight reached the dwellings. This equitable design meant that no single neighborhood was left with stagnant air or poor sanitation. Every resident, from merchant to laborer, benefited from this geometrically enforced public health. The planners understood that a healthy city was a stable and prosperous one, and they used the grid to physically build that reality into the urban fabric. The Romans applied this same principle of modular design to solve the challenge of housing a massive population. Their insulae, or apartment blocks, were constructed like geometric puzzles. Builders used a standard measurement unit, and apartments were assembled from repeating rectangular modules. This systematic approach allowed for rapid, scalable construction. creating efficient and surprisingly modern multi-family housing across the empire. But these geometric patterns often carried a deeper, symbolic weight. The four-sided square of a courtyard home represented the four cardinal directions, anchoring the family within a stable, ordered universe. A circular arrangement of huts in a village could symbolize the unity and equality of the community, with no single house being more prominent than another. To live within these shapes was to be constantly, subtly reminded of one's place in a larger, harmonious whole. It fostered a powerful sense of belonging and collective identity. The ancient urban planner was therefore part engineer and part psychologist. They wielded geometry as a tool to shape not just stone and mortar, but human behavior and spiritual peace, creating environments that supported the entire person. And these carefully designed neighborhoods were all connected by pathways that were far more than simple routes from one point to another. These grand avenues were the arteries of ceremony and belief. In Teotihuacan, the immense Avenue of the Dead is a breathtaking feat of geometric intention. It is not just a road, it is a carefully calibrated stage for spiritual transformation. A participant in a procession would begin at one end, dwarfed by the massive pyramid of the moon ahead. With every step, the surrounding architecture, the precise angles of the towering platforms, and the sheer scale of the avenue itself worked in concert to create a feeling of ascending into a sacred realm. This was all by design. The avenue's unwavering alignment with celestial events meant that on certain days, the sun would rise or set in perfect harmony with the path, bathing the entire route in a divine light that turned the physical journey into a cosmic one. The Romans engineered their cities around a similar principle of geometric order with profound symbolic meaning. The Cardo, running north-south, and the Decumanus, running east-west, crossed at a perfect right angle at the heart of the city. This intersection, the Forum, was more than a busy marketplace. It was the symbolic center of the world for that community, the point where the four quarters of the city, and by extension the four corners of the empire, met. To stand at this crossroads was to stand at the axis of a meticulously ordered universe, a universe reflected in the straight lines of the streets that stretched out toward the horizon. The clarity of these axes made the city legible, not just for navigation, but for the soul. They organized daily life around shared cultural practices, from grand military parades to solemn religious festivals. Every citizen, simply by walking these geometrically perfect paths, was participating in a collective ritual that reinforced their identity and their connection to a larger cosmic blueprint. This profound intentionality is something you can still feel today. To walk these ancient routes is to feel the purpose behind every stone, to understand that you are tracing a path laid down not for convenience but for transcendence. And this sacred geometry was not confined to stone and plaster. It blossomed into the very gardens that offered respite from the urban expanse. Even these meticulously planned gardens were not the final expression of this geometric vision. The same sacred principles that shaped serene oases were also brought to bear on the bustling, practical heart of every city, the marketplace. Here, geometry was used to regulate commerce, foster fairness, and infuse daily trade with a sense of divine order. The Greek agora was far more than an open square. It was a carefully proportioned civic center. Its rectangular shape, often surrounded by colonnades of mathematically spaced columns, created a defined and organized space for public discourse, legal proceedings, and economic exchange. The geometric clarity of the space ensured that everyone, from the philosopher giving a speech to the merchant selling his wares, could be seen and heard, promoting transparency and community engagement. This was democracy and commerce literally built upon a foundation of balanced, harmonious design. In the heart of medieval Islamic cities, the suq, or marketplace, was a marvel of geometric organization. Rather than a chaotic jumble of stalls, it was a highly structured sequence of vaulted streets. Each street was dedicated to a specific craft or trade, with goldsmiths in one geometrically precise lane, textile merchants in another, and spice sellers in the next. This logical, grid-like organization made navigation effortless for customers and created powerful guild-based communities for the artisans. The vaulted ceilings, built with perfect arches, not only provided shade and shelter, but also created a rhythmic, almost musical progression of space as one moved through the market. The air itself would be filled with different, distinct scents and sounds from each designated section, a sensory experience guided by geometry. This systematic layout was about more than mere convenience. It was a reflection of a universe believed to be perfectly ordered. Even the act of trade, of measuring goods and exchanging currency, was seen through a geometric lens. Standardized weights and measures, often kept in a central, temple-like building within the market, ensured fairness and were themselves based on divine proportions. To cheat using false measures was not just a crime against a customer, it was an offense against the cosmic harmony the entire city was built to embody. The marketplace, therefore, became a place where spiritual ideals and earthly needs met. A citizen could purchase their daily bread in a space that was itself a lesson in balance, proportion, and communal fairness, a daily reminder that even commerce was part of the grand, geometric design of a well-ordered life. This geometric regulation of commerce created a powerful sense of fairness and communal trust. In the great Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, the main marketplace of Tlatelolco was a sight to behold, a vast, meticulously organized plaza directly connected to the city's central temple complex. This was no accident of urban planning. By placing the economic heart of the empire within the sacred precinct, the Aztecs were making a profound statement that all trade, all exchange of goods was ultimately a divine activity. The marketplace itself was divided into precise sectors, each dedicated to a specific type of merchandise, from gold and precious stones to vegetables and textiles. This geometric organization was not just for efficiency, it was a physical manifestation of a cosmic order where every product had its rightful and ordered place. The flow of people and goods was choreographed like a sacred dance, ensuring that the vibrant chaos of commerce was always contained within a framework of spiritual meaning. Across the world, Chinese market planners employed a different kind of numerical magic. The number 8, sounding like the word for prosperity and wealth, was considered incredibly auspicious. Market squares were often designed with 8 entrances, or key buildings would feature 8 sides or 8 pillars, all in an effort to attract abundance and good fortune through symbolic geometry. Even the intricate mosaics that adorned the floors of Roman markets were more than decoration. Their repeating geometric patterns, often based on sacred symbols like the endless knot or the flower of life, were believed to channel positive energy and prosperity into the commercial space. To shop in such an environment was to participate in a ritual of abundance where the very act of exchange was blessed by the design of the space itself. These marketplaces reveal a world where economics and spirituality were inseparable, 2 sides of the same coin, both governed by the same universal rules of harmony and proportion. This deep connection between belief and daily life was not confined to the marketplace. It was etched into the very walls of the city, waiting to tell its story to anyone who knew how to look. Even the art on the walls was a form of sacred mathematics. Murals and carvings were not merely decorative, they were a public library of geometric code, designed to instruct and remind every citizen of the stories and laws that bound their society together. In ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs were never arranged randomly. scribes carefully composed them within invisible grids, their proportions and placement following strict rules of balance and harmony. A single panel on a temple wall was a mathematical equation as much as it was a historical record, with the size and spacing of each symbol carrying deep meaning. Far across the world, the Maya carved their history into stone stelae. These towering monuments were framed by intricate geometric borders, often featuring repeating patterns of spirals or stepped frets that represented the cyclical nature of time and the layered universe. The figures of kings and gods depicted within these frames were themselves composed using sacred proportions, their limbs and postures echoing the angles and ratios found in the city's larger architecture. This created a powerful visual harmony, a resonance between the art and its setting that made the entire city feel like a single, cohesive statement. For a person living in such a place, the lesson was inescapable. Simply by walking past a carved stele or gazing at a temple mural, they were absorbing a complex worldview. The symmetry in the art reinforced the order of the streets, the repetition of patterns echoed the cycles of the seasons, and the specific angles used mirrored the precise alignments of the buildings with the stars. This was a universal language, one that could be understood by everyone, from the highest priest to a child who could not yet read. The city itself was the teacher, and its curriculum was written in geometry. When we learn to see these patterns, the artworks transform from static images into active participants in the urban design, whispering the ancient narratives that were woven into the very structure of the city. And if a single mural could hold such coded meaning, then the maps they drew of their world must have been the ultimate geometric artifacts. These ancient maps were not meant to guide a traveler across the land. They were designed to guide the mind toward understanding. A Babylonian clay tablet known as the Imago Mundi does not show us coastlines or mountain ranges as we would expect. Instead, it presents the world as a single perfect circle, floating in a cosmic ocean with Babylon itself placed firmly at the center. This was not a failure of geography. It was a triumph of cosmology. The map was a symbolic diagram of the entire known universe, a geometric expression of their belief system where their city was the literal axis mundi, the center of all creation. The precise circles and radiating lines were a code, a visual shorthand for a complex set of ideas about order, power, and humanity's place in the cosmos. They were mapping belief itself. This abstract approach to cartography was a global phenomenon. Across the vast Pacific, Polynesian navigators created their own incredible maps from palm ribs and shells. These stick charts look like delicate geometric sculptures, a web of curves and intersections that would baffle a modern cartographer. But to a trained navigator, they were a brilliant and practical tool. The curves did not represent landmasses, they mapped the patterns of ocean swells and currents. The intersections marked the meeting points of different sea routes, and the small shells indicated the location of islands. This was a dynamic, fluid map of movement and energy, not a static picture of land. It encoded generations of observational knowledge about the behavior of the sea and the stars into a portable, geometric form. What both these traditions share is a profound truth. For ancient peoples, the primary purpose of a map was not to show you where you were, but to tell you what you were a part of. It was a tool for making the chaos of the world intelligible and meaningful, for fitting the immense and often frightening unknown into a framework of harmonious, recognizable shapes. This challenges our modern obsession with literal accuracy and GPS precision. It suggests that the most important journeys are not just across space, but into understanding. And if a single map could hold such a layered view of the world, then the entire layout of a city was the ultimate expression of this geometric philosophy, a pattern repeated across continents by cultures who never met. This startling repetition of design principles across the globe presents one of history's great puzzles. How is it that the grid plan of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, laid out over 4,000 years ago, bears such a striking resemblance to the rigid, right-angled streets of a Roman colonial town built millennia later? How did the builders of the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan and the Great Pyramid of Giza, separated by an ocean and centuries, both achieve such precise alignments with celestial bodies? Scholars have long debated two compelling possibilities. The first is diffusion, the slow, often invisible migration of ideas along ancient trade routes carried by merchants, travelers, and conquerors. A single innovator's concept could have traveled for centuries, adapted and refined by each culture it touched. The second possibility is perhaps even more profound: independent innovation. This theory suggests that the human mind, when confronted with the same fundamental problems of organizing society, measuring the heavens, and seeking spiritual harmony, naturally arrives at similar geometric solutions. The circle and the square are, after all, the most basic and perfect forms we perceive in nature, from the sun and moon to the crystals forming in the earth. The logic of right angles provides the strongest building blocks. The predictable cycles of the stars offer the only reliable calendar. These are universal experiences, and it is possible that cultures working in isolation simply tapped into the same deep well of mathematical and cosmological truth. We see this independent genius in places like Cahokia, near modern-day St. Louis. This vast Native American metropolis, centered around enormous, precisely oriented earthen mounds, was built without any known contact with European or Asian civilizations. Yet its grand plaza and central axis mirror the symbolic core of cities across the world. Similarly, the ancient Chinese capital of Xi'an was designed as a perfect square within a square, its walls and gates aligned to the cardinal directions, reflecting a cosmic order that would have felt instantly familiar to a planner from ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. This was geometry acting as a universal language, a lingua franca of urbanism that transcended spoken words. Whether through shared ideas or a shared human spirit, these patterns reveal a common pursuit, a universal yearning to build meaning, order, and beauty into the very ground we walk upon. To translate these grand visions into reality required more than just philosophy. It demanded a toolkit of remarkable ingenuity and precision. Their toolkit was deceptively simple, a collection of humble objects that became instruments of cosmic intention. A long, straight pole planted firmly in the earth, the gnomon, was their primary connection to the heavens. By meticulously tracking the moving tip of its shadow throughout the day and across the seasons, they could chart the sun's precise path, marking the solstices and equinoxes with unerring accuracy. This single tool provided the foundational lines from which all other measurements would flow. A weighted string, the plumb bob, gave them a perfect vertical reference, a line that pointed directly to the Earth's center, allowing them to raise walls that were truly upright and stable. But to translate these celestial and vertical lines into the grand scale of a city, they needed something more. They used ropes carefully measured and knotted at specific intervals. In ancient Egypt, these specialists were known as the harpodonapti, the rope stretchers. They understood the secret of the 3-4-5 triangle. By taking a rope with 12 equally spaced knots, they could stretch it to form a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units. The angle opposite the 5-unit side would always, without fail, be a perfect right angle. This simple trick, a fundamental principle of geometry, allowed them to lay out the perfectly square foundations of the pyramids with breathtaking precision. The Romans perfected this idea with a device called the Gromer. Imagine a cross mounted on a pole with a plumb bob hanging from the end of each arm. By sighting along the strings of two opposite plumb bobs, a Roman surveyor could establish a flawlessly straight line. Turning the device 90 degrees, he could then sight another perfect line, creating an exact right angle for the intersection of his cardo and decumanus. With little more than this wooden tool, they could map out an entire city grid that would endure for millennia. The use of these tools was often a sacred act, accompanied by prayers or rituals. To stretch the measuring rope was to invoke divine order, to impose the perfection of the heavens onto the chaos of the raw earth. Their work was a form of meditation, a physical prayer made manifest in stone and street. The fact that they achieved such stunning accuracy with such basic implements is a testament not to advanced technology, but to profound skill, patience, and an unwavering belief in their cosmic mission. They prove that vision, not just machinery, is what truly builds a civilization. And this meticulously ordered physical world they created went on to shape something equally complex, the very structure of their societies. The straight lines of a street grid could carve a society into its constituent parts. This geometric division was a powerful tool for organizing not just space, but people, embedding social hierarchy directly into the urban landscape. In traditional Hindu city planning, the town was envisioned as a vast cosmic mandala. This sacred diagram was not merely symbolic. It was a functional blueprint that assigned each caste, each social group, to a specific geometric sector of the city. The priests and the ruling class resided closest to the central temple, the spiritual and geometric heart of the community. Further out, in concentric rings, lived the merchants, then the artisans, and finally, on the outermost edges, those considered ritually impure. Your address was a map of your social standing, a permanent physical reminder of your place in a divinely ordered universe. To cross from one geometric zone into another was to transgress a powerful social boundary. Across the world, medieval European towns used a similar principle of circular division. A mighty castle or cathedral would sit at the center, surrounded by a first wall protecting the nobility and the clergy. Outside that wall, a second ring would house the merchants and skilled craftsmen in their guild halls. And beyond the outer defensive wall, the poorest residents lived in sprawling, less organized suburbs. The geometry was a form of social armor, with each concentric ring representing a layer of privilege and protection. These designs were never presented as oppression. They were framed as natural, even celestial. The circle could symbolize the unified body of the community, with each part relying on the others. The square represented an unshakable, stable social order. The geometry itself lent a sense of inevitability and righteousness to the hierarchy. To question your place was to question the very architecture of the cosmos. This is the subtle power of urban design. It does not just reflect culture, it actively enforces it, guiding behavior and reinforcing norms with every wall, every gate, and every straight dividing road. The citizen internalizes this order simply by living within it, walking the same geometrically ordained paths every day. And these very paths were then used for the most important rituals that bound these carefully ordered societies together. These ritual spaces were the culminating point of the entire city's sacred geometry. The grand avenue, the protective walls, the central temple, all of it was designed to guide participants toward a profound, transformative experience within these ceremonial arenas. The architects of these spaces were masters of environmental psychology, wielding geometry as a tool to directly shape human perception and emotion. They understood that a ritual's power was not just in its words, but in its setting. At Stonehenge, the massive standing stones are arranged in a series of perfect concentric circles and horseshoe shapes. This was not a random arrangement. On the morning of the summer solstice, the sun's rays would spear through a specific gap between two towering stones, striking the central altar with a beam of light at the exact moment of sunrise. The geometry of the circle focused this celestial event, turning a simple sunrise into a dramatic, awe-inspiring spectacle. The participants standing within this stone ring were not just observers. They were inside the instrument itself, feeling the alignment in their very bones. This precise choreography of stone and sun transformed a natural occurrence into a direct communication with the divine. The experience was engineered for maximum impact. Similarly, the massive stepped ziggurats of Mesopotamia, like the famous structure at Ur, were not just raised platforms. They were immense stages for religious drama. The towering staircase provided a processional route for priests, making them appear to ascend into the heavens themselves. Below, the vast rectangular plaza was carefully calculated to hold thousands of spectators. Every sightline was considered. A person standing at the very back of the crowd still had an unobstructed view of the rituals unfolding high above them on the temple platform. The geometry of the space ensured that everyone, from the highest priest to the most humble citizen, participated in the sacred event, fostering a powerful sense of communal identity and shared belief. But the manipulation did not end with vision. These spaces were acoustic marvels. In some ancient Greek theaters, the perfect semicircular arrangement of stone seats and the careful shaping of the stage acted as a natural sound amplifier. A speaker standing at the central point could be heard clearly by every single person in the audience, even those in the very back rows, without ever raising their voice. This was not an accident. It was acoustic engineering achieved through geometric precision. The echo of a chant or the clear, unhurried words of an oracle would have felt supernatural, a voice empowered by the very design of the space. This fusion of light, sound, and sacred geometry created a fully immersive environment. It elevated ceremony into something unforgettable, searing the spiritual message into the memory of every participant through the overwhelming power of the experience. The ordinary act of gathering was transformed into a sacred act of cosmic connection, all guided by the silent, unwavering hand of geometric design. This profound knowledge, however, was not destined to last forever. A great forgetting began to settle over the ancient world. This great forgetting did not happen overnight. It was a slow erosion, a turning away from the old ways in favor of a new world built on industry and machine logic. The straight line, once a sacred connection to the celestial order, was now valued only for its ruthless efficiency in moving goods and traffic. The circle, a symbol of divine eternity, was reduced to a traffic roundabout. Cities began to sprawl in chaotic, profit-driven patterns, their anonymous grids lacking any symbolic depth or spiritual intention. The very soul of urban design seemed to have been paved over by asphalt and concrete, a world where utility completely overshadowed meaning. But the ancient geometries never truly disappeared. They simply went underground, waiting to be rediscovered. In the 20th century, a powerful counter-movement began to emerge. Pioneering scholars like John Michell, through works such as The View over Atlantis, and the French metaphysician René Guénon, argued passionately that these lost principles were not archaic superstitions. They were a sophisticated science of harmony, a universal language of form that modern humanity had foolishly abandoned. Their writings, along with stunning new archaeological discoveries from around the globe, ignited a fresh fascination. This was not a call to simply copy the past. It was an invitation to rediscover a timeless wisdom and apply it to the challenges of the modern world. Artists and architects began to explore sacred geometry once more, weaving its ratios and patterns into everything from paintings to public buildings. seeking to create spaces that nourished the human spirit, not just sheltered the human body. This revival highlights a profound and timeless appeal. We are, it seems, instinctively drawn to environments that embody balance, proportion, and a connection to something greater than ourselves. And now, with the aid of modern technology, we are finally developing the tools to fully decode the ciphers our ancestors left behind in the stone. These modern tools have become our digital shovels, brushing away centuries of dirt and overgrowth to reveal the pristine blueprints beneath. Light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, is perhaps the most revolutionary of these technologies. By firing millions of laser pulses from an aircraft and measuring their return time, it creates a fantastically detailed three-dimensional map of the Earth's surface, effectively allowing us to strip away the jungle canopy. In the dense rainforests of Cambodia, LiDAR did not just reveal a few hidden temples near Angkor Wat. It unveiled an entire lost metropolis, a sprawling urban landscape with canals, roads, and suburbs all arranged in a vast, low-density grid. This was a geometric pattern of civilization on a scale no one had ever imagined, completely invisible from the ground. Similarly, geographic information systems, known as GIS, allow researchers to layer maps, archaeological data, and celestial charts on top of each other. With a few clicks, they can test if a temple's alignment to a solstice sunrise is statistically significant or merely coincidental. They can calculate the precise angles between monuments separated by miles, uncovering geometric relationships that would have taken a lifetime of manual surveying to even suspect. Three-dimensional modeling then brings these discoveries to life. We can now witness a digital recreation of the sun's rays piercing through the doorway of Newgrange tomb on the winter solstice, or watch the precise shadow play that would have occurred on the steps of the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent at Teotihuacan. These are not just cool animations, they are rigorous experiments allowing us to see through the eyes of the ancient architects and understand the dramatic effects they engineered. This technological leap is closing a vast gap in our understanding. We are no longer just guessing at their intentions. We are measuring their precision, validating their knowledge, and in doing so, granting them a sophistication that modern history often denied them. This newfound power to see the invisible comes with a profound responsibility, forcing us to confront difficult questions about how we interact with these fragile windows into the past. This newfound power to see the invisible comes with a profound responsibility. The very act of uncovering these geometric secrets forces us to confront a difficult question: who truly owns this ancient knowledge? Is it the property of the international academic community, the government of the nation where the site stands, or the living descendants of the people who built it? These are not abstract debates. When a sacred geometric alignment is published in a scientific journal, it can instantly become a target for tourists, their footsteps slowly eroding the very stones they have come to admire. The delicate balance of a site maintained for millennia can be undone in a single generation by the sheer weight of visitation. The drive to reconstruct these places, to make them more accessible and visually impressive for visitors, often clashes with the duty to preserve their authenticity. Adding modern concrete to stabilize an ancient wall, or rebuilding a temple platform for safety, can forever alter the original geometric and spiritual integrity of the structure. It is a constant negotiation between sharing a wonder and destroying the very thing that makes it wondrous. Beyond the crowds, more insidious threats loom. Looters, armed with our own published research, can target areas predicted to hold treasures, digging brutal trenches through precise geometric layouts in search of sellable artifacts. Climate change poses an even greater danger as rising groundwater threatens to dissolve the foundations of Mohenjo-Daro's perfect grid, and increasingly violent storms batter the geometric stonework of Maya cities. The solution cannot be to simply lock these places away and throw away the key. The most successful preservation efforts are those that actively engage local communities as partners and guardians. When the people who live in the shadow of a great pyramid have a direct stake in its protection and benefit from the tourism it attracts, they become its most passionate defenders. This requires a shift from a model of extraction, where knowledge and profits are taken away, to one of collaboration, where global interest supports local livelihoods and cultural pride. International cooperation is essential, sharing not just technology but resources and expertise to fortify these sites against the threats of the modern age. The ultimate goal is sustainable stewardship, ensuring that these geometric marvels can whisper their secrets not just to us, but to countless generations yet to come. This ethical approach is the only way to truly honor the legacy of the ancient planners, whose work was always intended for the benefit of their entire community and the cosmos itself. These silent stone blueprints pose a quiet challenge to our loud modern world. We often define progress as an endless climb toward greater technological complexity, a relentless pursuit of more. But the ancient planners whisper a different story. Their cities were not monuments to conquering nature, but to collaborating with it. They measured their success not in the height of their skyscrapers, but in the depth of their harmony, aligning their lives with the cycles of the sun and the stable turn of the stars. This was a sophistication of a different kind, one rooted in spiritual depth and a profound understanding of balance. Their greatest achievement was not a new invention, but a lasting peace, a society that felt inherently meaningful because it was consciously designed to be a part of something magnificent. This invites a startling question. Could a society that lacks this sense of cosmic connection ever truly be considered advanced? The enduring power of these places speaks to a human longing that goes deeper than convenience. We are drawn to the Parthenon or the pyramids not just for their scale, but for their sublime proportion. We feel a sense of awe walking down the Avenue of the Dead, not because it is wide, but because it is right. It resonates with something fundamental within us, a recognition of beauty and order that feels timeless. This is the true gift of sacred geometry. It offers a universal language of form that transcends culture and epoch, speaking directly to our innate desire for connection and meaning. To contemplate these patterns is to rediscover a forgotten part of our own blueprint, a yearning to live in a world that is not just efficient but harmonious. It encourages us to look at our own lives and communities, to ask where we might introduce more intention, more balance, more beauty. Perhaps we do not need to build ziggurats, but we can design our daily routines with the rhythm of the seasons in mind. We may not lay out city grids, but we can create homes that feel like sanctuaries of order and peace. The ancient geometers leave us with a powerful philosophy that the most profound progress is measured not in what we build, but in how we belong. This ancient wisdom is not locked in the past, but is being rediscovered by today's urban planners as a vital key to our future. The same principles that once aligned cities with the stars are now being used to design sustainable, healthy environments that nurture the human spirit. This modern movement, often called biophilic design, consciously weaves natural patterns and ratios into the very fabric of our buildings and public spaces. A new hospital might feature a central atrium whose proportions follow the golden ratio, not for superstition, but because studies show such spaces can actually reduce patient stress and promote healing. The undulating forms of a new parkway might echo the meandering path of a river, encouraging slower traffic and creating a more peaceful, natural experience for everyone who uses it. This is more than just aesthetics. It is a functional application of an ancient understanding that human well-being is deeply connected to the forms we live within. Beyond individual buildings, entire cities are looking to the closed-loop systems of ancient metropolises for inspiration. The concept of a circular economy, where waste is minimized and resources are constantly reused, mirrors the ingenious water management and recycling practices found in places like Mohenjo-Daro. Modern developments are now integrating green corridors that act as urban lungs, community gardens that foster connection, and pedestrian-friendly zones designed with sacred geometric patterns underfoot. These designs do more than reduce congestion and pollution. They actively combat the modern plagues of urban alienation and anxiety by creating spaces that feel inherently balanced, inviting, and meaningful. This represents a powerful fusion of timeless wisdom with contemporary innovation, offering practical solutions to our greatest urban challenges. The goal is no longer just to build efficiently, but to build environments that help us belong to each other and to the natural world. This journey through the world's oldest cities reveals a profound and universal human impulse. We have seen how our ancestors across the globe used the silent language of geometry to encode their deepest beliefs about the cosmos, the divine, and their place within it all. They transformed abstract circles and squares into thriving urban centers that were both marvels of engineering and maps of the heavens. From the celestial alignments of the pyramids to the social harmony of the Indus Valley grids, they demonstrated that a city could be more than a collection of buildings. It could be a living, breathing organism, a sacred instrument designed to elevate the human experience. They achieved this not with advanced technology, but with profound observation, patience, and an unwavering desire to build a world of meaning. The key takeaway is not that we should copy their temples, but that we should emulate their intention. They teach us that the most enduring design looks beyond mere utility to consider the soul of a place. They remind us that true progress is measured not only in the height of our skyscrapers, but in the depth of our connection to our history, to our environment, and to each other. Their ciphered maps are an invitation, a challenge to look at our own world with new eyes and to ask how we might once again build cities that don't just house us, but that truly inspire us. These silent stone blueprints pose a quiet challenge to our loud modern world. We often define progress as an endless climb toward greater technological complexity, a relentless pursuit of more. But the ancient planners whisper a different story. Their cities were not monuments to conquering nature, but to collaborating with it. They measured their success not in the height of their skyscrapers, but in the depth of their harmony, aligning their lives with the cycles of the sun and the stable turn of the stars. This was a sophistication of a different kind, one rooted in spiritual depth and a profound understanding of balance. Their greatest achievement was not a new invention, but a lasting peace, a society that felt inherently meaningful because it was consciously designed to be a part of something magnificent. This invites a startling question. Could a society that lacks this sense of cosmic connection ever truly be considered advanced? The enduring power of these places speaks to a human longing that goes deeper than convenience. We are drawn to the Parthenon or the pyramids not just for their scale, but for their sublime proportion. We feel a sense of awe walking down the avenue of the dead, not because it is wide, but because it is right. It resonates with something fundamental within us, a recognition of beauty and order that feels timeless. This is the true gift of sacred geometry. It offers a universal language of form that transcends culture and epoch, speaking directly to our innate desire for connection and meaning. To contemplate these patterns is to rediscover a forgotten part of our own blueprint, a yearning to live in a world that is not just efficient but harmonious. It encourages us to look at our own lives and communities, to ask where we might introduce more intention, more balance, more beauty. Perhaps we do not need to build ziggurats, but we can design our daily routines with the rhythm of the seasons in mind. We may not lay out city grids, but we can create homes that feel like sanctuaries of order and peace. The ancient geometers leave us with a powerful philosophy that the most profound progress is measured not in what we build, but in how we belong.